And guys, when your results look this good, do I need to explain them? Have a look. Look at that. Like, come on. Come on. Look at this. Look at this. It's just a resistor and a capacitor. That's a low pass filter hooked up to the signal. And that's what we get. All right. So in order to get that really smooth sine wave that you saw in the video, what you're going to want to start with is a carrier wave. This is going to be a high frequency square wave that you're going to modify the duty cycle. For my example, I use 20 kilohertz, right? Now, people go as high as 200. If I can hit 200 kilohertz, that would be great. But for now, we're staying at 20. Now, you're going to want to modulate the duty cycle of this carrier wave. That's how you're going to get the average voltage to follow a sine wave. So have a look. The average voltage, 90%, 74%, 58%. What's going to happen is you're going to map a sine wave, right? That's why it's called a carrier wave, because you're actually carrying another wave inside of it. So let's say you've modulated the carrier wave and you go to put this signal in your oscilloscope. Are you going to see a smooth sine wave? Absolutely not. What you're going to want is a low pass filter, and you're going to put the signal plus through here and the signal negative through here. Okay, and you're going to probe these 2 points, and then, and only then, is you're going to see that smooth sine wave. And how it works is something like this. So how you design it is you want to cut off frequency. Okay, so we have a 20 kilohertz carrier frequency, and let's just say the frequency of our sine wave inside is 50 hertz. Okay, the cutoff has to be somewhere in between, right? It has to be well below the carrier and well above the sine frequency. Let's just say we pick 1 kilohertz, right? So anything above 1 kilohertz, it's going to cut off, and anything below 1 kilohertz, it's going to allow it to pass. So the 50 hertz is going to pass really cleanly, and it's going to really cut off the 20 kilohertz. And you're going to be left with that really smooth sine wave. So let me show you how we modulate the duty cycle of our carrier wave in the software. And then once you come back, I'm going to show you how we adjust the frequency of that sine wave within that carrier. So what we're going to do in the code is we're going to put these values inside of a table. More specifically, you can make up these values, but we're going to get the values from a sine lookup table. It's on the internet. You can do it mathematically, but this is the way I find best. It's the quickest. And basically what it's going to do is once we get these values and put them in a table, the code is going to fetch these values and directly set the duty or the pulse of this carrier wave. And that is essentially how it's going to work. We're going to go into a sine lookup table, and we're going to get our number of points. I'll put 20, okay, so it's not really important. Max amplitude is 799. That is my auto reload register value. Okay, so if you're using a STM32, you want to put your auto reload register value, because what that is that's the length of your duty cycle. That's your length of your period, right? If you're using an Arduino or something like that, you probably want to use a percentage. Then copy and paste this, make sure it's in decimal format. Go to IDE. Create a table just like this one, paste the value in, make sure you have the commas, and then you're going to create a for loop just like this one, okay? This is going to iterate through the table and index those values, and then directly set the pulse value, okay? Now, I've got a hold delay of 1. We're after a 50 hertz wave. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a carrier wave, which is 20 kilohertz. It's got 20,000 pulses in it. I've got 20,000 periods, okay? And we want, we have 20 values, right, that we got to get through. But we also want 50 hertz. So try and stay with it. 20 times 50 So now that we're back, I have a really simple example here, right? We're going to go through some really simple examples. Here we have, so forget the 20 kilohertz frequency. Here we have a 20 hertz carrier, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the duty cycle every single pulse. So if we adjust the duty cycle every single pulse and we have 20 values in our table, we're going to end up with a sine wave that looks something like that. It's got 1 hertz, right? We've cycled through the table once in 1 second, so we get 1 hertz, okay? What happens if we double the duty cycle, but keep adjusting the duty every pulse? If we keep adjusting the duty cycle every pulse, well, and we double the carrier frequency, we can cycle through the table twice now in 1 second, meaning we get 2 hertz. Okay, see what I mean? Now, the way we control this frequency, is we can hold the duty cycle for a set number of pulses within that carrier wave. This is what I mean. We're going to keep our carrier wave at 40 hertz, but we're going to hold that duty cycle for 2 pulses. And look what happens there. So we've basically spread our table across 40 pulses by holding that same value for 2 pulses, and we get 1 hertz. There's actually a really cool formula. I don't know if that actually exists, but you know, I come up with it. So this can tell you how many pulses to hold for. It doesn't matter what your carrier frequency is, and you can choose your sine frequency. So coming up to this one here, right, we have a carrier frequency of 40 hertz, okay? We have a frequency of 2, sine frequency of 2, and we have 20 values in our sine table. This is going to give us, 40 and 40, 1. We're going to hold for one pulse. We're going to hold a duty cycle for 1 pulse. And look at this. We're holding it for 1 pulse, and we get 2. Same down here. Oh, that's probably funny buggers, right? For this one here, right? Well, we have 1 hertz, so let's change that to 1 hertz. And, that's going to be, you get the picture, 20, and it's going to be 2. So hold it for 2 hertz. So hold it for 2 pulses, and you get 1 hertz. So for something more complicated, for our 20 kilohertz carrier wave, we want 50 hertz sine wave. So if we put this in, right, 20,000 over, we want a 50 hertz sine wave, and we have 20 values, right? This is going to give you 20 pulses. So we're going to hold for 20 pulses, and that is going to give us a 50 hertz sine wave within a 20,000 pulse carrier wave, right? This is actually the carrier wave here. It's really, really tiny. Look at this, 5 times 10 to the negative 6, right? Now, the one millisecond duty cycle that the delay. So in my code, I have a delay of 1 millisecond. So that's going to hold, right? So my for loop has a delay. So it indexes a value and it holds it for 1 millisecond and then goes to the next value. Okay? There's better ways to do it, but this is just the way I'm doing it to teach you guys. So I've calculated that one of my pulses in the 20 kilohertz sine wave is 5 times 10 to the negative 6 seconds, right? And the delay is 1 times 10 to the negative 4 seconds. That means I have 20 pulses. And that's exactly how many pulses I need to hold in order to get a 50 hertz sine wave. So if I have this delay, I'll be able to get a 50 hertz sine wave, right? And that is basically how you control the frequency of your sine wave within your carrier wave. Remember to use this formula, whatever you have, 200 kilohertz, and you want a frequency of 100 hertz, and then you have, you know, look, you don't have to, 20 is a very small number, right? You go as big as you want, small as you want, right? Whatever works for you. Right? It really just depends on your application, but this is how you do it. Okay, so we have loaded the chip, and let me show you what it looks like. There you go, you can sort of see it getting fatter. If I close it, there you go, that's your full duty cycle. And then there you go, there's your nothing duty cycle. So we should get a pretty good value here. So let's build the low frequency, low pass filter, and then let's see how that sine wave changes. Okay, that's how dead simple it is. I didn't show you, but a low pass filter is basically a capacitor and a resistor hooked up in series, and we're gonna measure across the capacitor. They're both connected to ground. So we're gonna hook it up, and then I'm gonna show you what it looks like on the scope. And guys, when your results look this good, do I need to explain them? Have a look. Look at that. Like, come on. Come on. Look at this. Look at this. It's just a resistor and a capacitor. That's a low pass filter hooked up to the signal. And that's what we get. Like, that is how you get the smoothest sine wave. And that was only 20 values, right? Only 20 values. You don't need a lot to get a nice smooth sine wave. Sorry, and here is the cursor. So we have 25 hertz. We should have only had 20 hertz. It's not my oscilloscope because that is normally bang on accurate. Okay, so the problem with we got 25 hertz, right? It doesn't seem right, we should have got 50. Now, the problem is actually with the hold delay, right? So I was actually doing some research, and the hold delay below 2 milliseconds is unreliable. You either get 1 or 2 milliseconds. It's just how it works. It's too much to go into. So it's only reliable above 2 milliseconds. So if you're doing it above, then you're good. So that's why we got 25 hertz. But that is essentially how you create a smooth sine wave from PWM. In my next video, I'm going to be showing you how to hook up external storage to your STM32 microcontroller. Now, this is all part of the series in playing music off this half bridge. Now, when I built this, I promised you guys that I was gonna play some tunes, which I will, but it's gonna take a bit more time than I expected. So now, because you can't feed speakers square waves, they just don't like it. So now we've finished that, we're gonna feed them smooth sine wave. But now, to store the samples for the song, we're gonna need external storage, which we're gonna be using an SD. Now, even on a big microcontroller like this one, this is the H755ZI, you still need external storage to be able to play a full-size song. So we're gonna feed it a smooth sine wave to the speakers. And the speakers are actually these ones here. I bought the speakers. Where are they? They're like 3 watts, 4 ohm, nothing special, but you know, do the job. So once we can store the music, the samples, I think we should be able to finish playing music on this D class. That's what it's called, a D class amp. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.